Michigan has a giant game coming up this weekend. They are going to be playing the number 3 Texas Longhorns. It's going to be massive. Obviously, Saturday didn't look particularly impressive, but it's still a big game coming up. We're going to talk about it with David Pollack, the legendary Georgia linebacker, on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Tuesday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. And you know this guy from both being a legendary player on the field for Georgia, which, by the way, David is my cousin's favorite team. He lives in the Atlanta area, so he's going to be thrilled to see this. But he's also
David's a good man. He's a good man.
He's also David Pollack is also the former host of College GameDay on ESPN. So thanks for doing this, man. We've had a lot of technical difficulties on both sides. Oh, yeah. You should see me trying to figure out all this stuff, bro. I'm trying to do this so I don't have to travel. I can do as much as I can from the house, and I'm an absolute mess. So, Isaiah, I'm going to take it from you and just roll with it, baby. Well, I appreciate it. You know what? It was the same on my end. You just didn't get to witness it. Just 18 restarts of the computer just to get my camera connected. Nonetheless, let's talk about some football. I think that's what everyone wants to get into. Michigan opened up the season against Fresno State. They are the defending national champions, but a lot of people not really feeling the Wolverines. They dropped a spot in the coaches poll. I don't know if you got a chance to see the game or not, but when you look at this game against Texas, considering how much Michigan has to replace, what do you think, just kind of off the top of your head, when you look at this matchup? What are your general thoughts? Well, first of all, I watched every second because that's what you do. You got to watch it on college football, and I love watching it. But I think just like everybody else, it's going to be frustrations, and there's going to be growing pains with Michigan fans. Like, you've had a 3-year run that is stupid, okay? And so sometimes we got to take some steps back. And I think, especially when you look at, you had a top 10 quarterback, and now you're clearly trying to figure that part out. So, Here's what I want to point to, Isaiah, on the offensive side of the ball that I really, really love. Your tight end's a baller. Like, he's an absolute baller. Whether you split him out at wide receiver, whether you put him at inline tight end, his big frame, you could just tell. I mean, he's an absolute stud, and Colson Loveland is going to be a mismatch every single week and a guy you can feature in this offense. Another thing, too, that I saw is Khalil Millington. Who the heck is that guy? Like, I've been watching this team, Khalil Mullings. Like, I've been watching Michigan for years, and you're like, Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, and they're one of the best 1-2 punches in all of college football. And now all of a sudden you put in number 20, this big old dude that's like 6'2", 230 pounds, who's also returning kicks and breaking tackles and the running game. He gave him a real big spark, man. I thought he was the best running back on the field. So I think it's growing pains with the offensive side of the football. Orji has the one pass, the touchdown. But you can tell when he has to throw the football, he's not there yet, and that's going to take time. And Davis Warren, obviously everybody knows it's a great story, but how can he grow? How can he develop? It's easy against Fresno. It's usually easy against the schedule early in the season. But my goodness, having Texas coming to you, the good news for Michigan fans after game one, and we can get into Texas and whatever else you want to get into, is the defense looked very similar. Like, they looked like a group that was a bunch of dogs up front. Will Johnson with the big INT return. They look hungry. They look physical. They look like a unit that can keep them in every single game they play. So that was good news after week one. Now, in come Texas. Yeah, and one thing you're going to like about Khalil Mullings here, he is a former linebacker. He was recruited as a linebacker. He came in as a linebacker. He was behind all these guys, and then they converted him to running back. So
he runs it like a linebacker. He runs it angry and ticked off and physical. Man, he was he popped off the tape for me watching him. He was a baller, bro.
Speaking of linebackers, I want your impressions. He didn't necessarily grade out super great on PFF, but to me, one of the most impressive players Michigan had on the field at any time was number one on the defensive side, and that's linebacker Jayshon Barham. Did he stick out to you, or outside of him, who else really stood out to you for Michigan on defense?
Well, I think the pass defense stuck out. Will Johnson was I don't think he wasn't his dominant self. I was surprised that Fresno wanted to attack him. I thought, like, what are you doing? Why would you throw at him? And then they paid the price for it in the end of the game when he runs it back to the house. I saw more of the same from Michigan. I think it's going to be the same. It's going to be physical. It's going to be aggressive. But it's guys that play the game the right way. They compete. They play hard. They're physical. They're sideline to sideline. I love linebackers and linemen, by the way, with single digits. They look more athletic. So when you see number one running around, he looks like an athletic guy because of the single digit. But I think Michigan's defense will keep them in every single game, like we talked about. So I think it's more guys that are just the same realm that you've seen. Somehow, amazingly, you look at the way they've developed guys and the guys that get stronger, and that you look at the freaks list every year. Michigan somehow finds a way to put people on there, year after year. So I think you should see more of the same from that defense.
When you look at this Texas game coming up on Saturday, a lot of people are not giving Michigan much of a chance, mostly due to the showing in week one, the lackluster offensive prowess that they had. But if Michigan is able to beat Texas, like, what are your keys, knowing, having seen these teams play in week one, what are your keys for Michigan in this game?
Well, Isaiah Bond transfers from Alabama and he goes to Texas against Will Johnson. Will be one of the better matchups we'll see in all of college football. Bond can fly. And so when you watch this passing game, listen, Quinn Ewers has been this throughout his career. He's been very up and down. And watching him in game one, it was okay in the first half, and then they kicked it in gear and they really dominated. But just interested to see if Michigan can pressure him. He's a guy that he has all the tools, man. Isaiah, when I watch him, like he can throw it off platform. He can change arm angles. He can throw it deep. He can take, he can throw touch passes. He can throw rockets. But the one thing that gets sloppy is his mechanics. And so if that Michigan defensive line, first of all, so good having this at home. Like, kudos to both these teams taking this game. I love early games that really, really matter. It's hard to book because you're going through growing pains early in the season. In Michigan, my God, not only have you replaced like every player, you've also replaced almost every staff member. So you're not at your peak right now. Like, that, obviously, it's going to build throughout the season. But I think the secondary, the pass defense versus Quinn Ewers versus a guy that can make mistakes, and the running game wasn't spectacular from Texas in week one. So I think Michigan can keep themselves in the game on that side of the football.
Well, David, I want to move off of an actual game preview into something that is way more near and dear to both of our hearts. And I encourage everyone to stick around for this, because I think that this is the most important thing out there. So we're going to talk about that nebulous thing that I'm teasing out there here in just a moment. But before we do, hey, Locked On Wolverines fans, I want to take a moment to give you a heads up on a brand new mobile game that I think you're going to love just as much as I do. That's Ultimate College Football HC. In this amazing game and simulation, you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football program to glory. Can you actually imagine being the head coach of Michigan? From recruiting players and hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camps and handling school scholarships, you can control every crucial detail of your program, and it's all in your hands. Will you be able to handle the pressure? Here's what I really love about the game. You're responsible for calling all the offensive plays during all of the games. Your strategy will not only determine the success of your football season, but will also shape the future and legacy of your program. Ultimate College Football HC is completely free, has no ads, is 100% playable offline. You can play on the go when you want and however you want. And of course, we have a special offer for Locked On Wolverines fans. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk, as it will get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, just visit ultimate-cfb.com or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. All right, we're back here with David Pollack. You're going to want to subscribe to him on YouTube. He just started an amazing YouTube channel breaking down all things college football, wealth of information and knowledge. You're definitely going to want to check that out. You just launched that, last week, David?
Yes, sir. Yeah, just figuring out how to post videos was a struggle. But yeah, we're working on it, baby.
I've been posting videos for a while. It's still a struggle for me every single day. Yes, even from the technical standpoint. But like I said right before the break, I encourage everyone to stick around for this part of the conversation. Obviously, I wear my love for Jesus Christ on my sleeve, as does David. But there's a lot of people out there that maybe don't realize that the University of Michigan football program does as well, right? They have a team chaplain, Pastor Robbie Emery, who's now full-time with the team. I would venture to guess that almost every player has some kind of Christian tattoo at this point. Like I was just noticing throughout fall camp, ones who didn't have them before have them now. Donovan Edwards and I talk off the record quite a bit about faith. How important, as someone that's been in those college locker rooms, is that to have that common bond through faith in Jesus Christ?
I mean, it's huge, man, because everything else in life is going to be like this, and people are going to let you down. And listen, you saw with y'all's quarterback situation, and it's no different at Georgia or wherever else in the country. Like if you go out and have a great day, like awesome, and if Warren does that, like, you know what's going to happen? They're going to get a bunch of pats on the back and a bunch of cheers, and everybody's going to be jacked up. When you throw a few interceptions, it's exactly the other way. And so I think you understand that it's fickle, and this world can be fickle, man. But your faith isn't. And that's what's always consistent. God's always consistent. He's always there. And so I think you, as a football player, you understand the gruelingness, and it's hard to find places to get away. But our team chaplains are enormous, man. They help you. When I got to Georgia, like, I started to get in the Word with them and learn what the Word meant. And I realized that, like, the Bible was my playbook, and it was my playbook for life. And every situation that I got in, it had an answer for me. And so faith is huge. And in Michigan last year, by the way, it was palpable. I could feel it through the TV screen. Like, I saw Jim Harbaugh, the difference in him talking, last year versus the years past about his faith. Like, it was so evident, and it was strong, and you could feel it. And so I understand what you're saying about Michigan, because I saw it from afar.
And it's been kind of amazing just to watch the growth of these guys. And it went from, just being all about football. And then when they brought in Pastor Robbie, they brought him in quite a long time ago. But once he became full time, just seeing how many guys were being baptized inside the building. And it goes beyond just Michigan. And like, it kind of feels like my friend Steve, who came on the show last week, he always says revival or bust. And it feels like the state of the world is pretty far away from that. But in college football, it kind of feels like it's happening, right? I don't know if you've seen what's happened at Ohio State with Travion Henderson and just everything that's happening on campus there. You look at the crowd at the Big Noon and College GameDay and all of these different signs that they have up. It's just amazing to kind of see just how the faith in Jesus is really coming to the forefront in college football. And it's very much clearly a part of the sport at this point.
Yeah. Anyway. Well, and I think, Isaiah, one thing that's critical now is, like, nobody has the right to really hide anymore. And everybody's always asked now to stand on where you believe. Like, where do you stand on X? Where do you stand on Y? And everybody's got their platforms to get their messages out. So, like, it's hard to kind of be neutral, because you're going to be asked so many questions. And just, the thing at Ohio State, I didn't know if we were allowed to mention that on a Michigan podcast, because I didn't know if you can say that team and how that works. But it was fantastic to see young men taking a priority and using the gifts they have and the talents they have to bring glory to God, because we are all gifted in unique ways, and we all have different gifts, different talents. But the way we use them is important. So everybody across the country realizing the power they have with their voice, realizing the power they have with their actions. And I think you've seen somewhat of a revival, and you saw it with people in the NFL too. And, people coming out and just taking a stand, saying where they stand, very confident in the faith in which they have. And I'm one of those people too. I will always take a stand, because it's the most important thing in my life.
I think we lost David. I know his computer was dying there, so we'll have to pick this up at a different time, because this was absolutely amazing. But that's David Pollack from, formerly of ESPN. You can follow him on Twitter at David Pollack, and you can also grab him on YouTube. He's got some amazing stuff on YouTube. But this is a conversation that I want to continue. I can tell you, I know a lot of you want to shy away from this. But this is certainly of the utmost importance, not just to me, but to the guys on the Michigan team. And it's becoming increasingly so in college football. So with that in mind, we're going to move on. We're going to talk a little bit about this Michigan-Texas matchup. And we're going to do so here in just a moment. But before we do, listen, I've been exhausted this week. It has been absolutely brutal. And you know what? If one of the things is as much as I want to take a nap half of the time, I can't. I don't have time. A day like today, I want to just sleep all day. I do not have time at all. But well, actually, you know what? We got David Pollack coming up. Let's do him on speakerphone. Let's see if we can do that. David, we're continuing the podcast. Let's do it on Can we do it on speakerphone for just a minute?
Yeah, you want to do it on FaceTime?
We can just do it on this. I'd never stopped recording, so we can pick up the conversation right here. I'm just going to hold the phone up and make a little graphic that says David Pollack on the phone.
This is amazing. Okay.
All right. So as we were saying, there's faith being such a central part of these teams and just kind of how it's worked out. Let's continue that thought. Like how much that you're not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and neither are these guys.
No, and I think that's something that's listen, with knowledge comes power, right? Like I think just like all of us, we're kind of cautious at first, and where I don't know all the answers, and I don't know this, and that's the cool thing I think about your faith, and that's the cool thing about once you read and you get more comfortable, you start to realize, man, like it doesn't have to be perfect, and I don't have to articulate every point perfect, but like I want to live a life worth emulating. Like I want to live a life that you look at and you go, man, that's different. I can feel the passion from that guy. I can tell he lives his life in a manner in which is different. And I remember when I came to Christ as a senior in high school. And I remember being at the lunch table. I was like, hey, guys, stop cursing, because they were cursing. And then 15, 20 minutes later, I got upset and I cursed. And they're like, well, what are you talking about? And I was like, crap, where did that come from? It was still something that was inside of me that I still had to get out. And I had to, go through sanctification and continue to learn and grow in my faith. So to see all these kids that are young and being outspoken and having to formulate their thoughts and being able to share them, it's encouraging. It's encouraging to guys like me that have been around a while and been doing that, to watch them proclaimly stand on the truth. And it's not something that's always easy. And what you understand is ridicule sometimes comes with it. And I love that these kids are willing to face that right in the face.
And and that's something for all of us, right? Because I don't often look at the YouTube comments, and there's a good reason for that. Sometimes I do, and sometimes it's wonderful. My girlfriend, she's always the one who goes and checks it like behind the scenes and tells me like, you need to go onto this episode and check it out. But sometimes I see it and it's like, especially because most of the time I didn't wear it today. I'm wearing one of my, like either my Jesus Saves hat or my Jesus is King hat. And it's really upsets, certain people. And, like I said, I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And, I was saved from a very young age, but I personally went wayward for quite some time and came, God chased me and brought me back to him same time as my girlfriend, Sarah. So it's kind of wild how that's all, how he works. But let's continue this conversation down the line, and we'll get more. And I'd love to have you back to talk more college football as the season wears on as well.
We can do it, brother. Appreciate you, my man.
All right, thanks, man. We'll talk soon. So that's David Pollack. It's the first time we've done that. Had a speakerphone go around there, but we're working on the fly. All right, we're going to continue on. We're going to do so here in just a moment. But before we do, like I said, I am exhausted. I am worn down already. It's only a week into the season. It's always the hardest is the first 2 weeks or so of the season for me. The way that I get in the zone is through 5 Hour Energy. Their shots give you the feeling of alertness and energy that you need to do exactly that. With zero sugar, a convenient portable size is the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5 Hour Energy website has flavors galore like watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and there's more. There is a flavor for everyone. Try all of them. On the site, you even have the option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. You choose the flavors, and it's delivered right to your door. So go to 5hourenergy.com. That's the number 5hourenergy.com. You get some 5-Hour Energy product today. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB and to receive 20% off of your order. This offer is valid only through September 30th, and it's only on one order, cannot be used with any other promotions. This code is not good on subscription orders, but go to 5hourenergy.com today. All right, that might have been a little bit of a clunky sign off, but we got it going. We got it working. So my thoughts on Michigan versus Texas coming up, because I know a lot of you probably don't feel nearly as good as you would if Michigan had put Fresno State away early. I do want to recall, and I'm going to pull this up real quick on the fly. Let's look at Fresno State's schedule, because we've already talked about what they've been the last couple years, right? They've been a 4-loss team each of the last couple of years. You look back to 2022, they lost. They won the first game. They lost close ones to 2 ranked teams, or lost a close one to Oregon State, which was ranked, and they got blown out by USC. They lost a close one to Connecticut, and they got blown out by Boise State. But they won the rest of their games. 2021, they lost 3 games. Again, they lost a close one to Oregon. They lost to Hawaii inexplicably, but in front of no fans, according to this. And they lost again to Boise State. You look this year, there's no Boise State on the schedule. The toughest teams that they're going to face are UNLV, Washington State, and UCLA. Certainly UCLA feels like a winnable game right now, considering what we just saw from them against Hawaii. But they very well could be 11-1 this season. And if that's the case, maybe you feel better about it, maybe you don't. But Michigan's long kind of taken its time to kind of get its footing in some of these games. I want to remind you that coming out of the Washington game in week 2, right? Because Washington had lost to Montana. No one had a lot of confidence in Michigan, and so them kind of just running over Washington. People were coming out of that game saying, like, you're not going to beat Ohio State this way. 2 weeks later against Rutgers, you're not going to beat Ohio State this way. And I want to make sure that you understand that Texas is a different deal, but it's whatever they might have to do to beat Texas isn't necessarily what they have to do to beat Ohio State. I think the key for Michigan is obviously defensively. And I see people on the message board saying you're going to have to score 27 or 30. That might be the case, but the Michigan defense has been absolutely phenomenal all the way through here, right? If we're looking at offensive statistics, yeah, Texas is going to be up there, but they're number 22. They ended up having 545 yards in the game, 355 pass yards, 190 rush yards. That could have been a much better number rush wise. Obviously, they're on their third back. If Michigan can bottle up the rushing and try to force Quinn Ewers to beat them with his arm, like David said, he's up and down. He's been up and down. So it will be really interesting to see how much that pass rush can get home. You feel pretty good about it, right, coming out of this last game, because some of these years it's like, oh man, they didn't even really get any sacks in week 1. That's been kind of the thing. And then you saw 3 in this one. You're getting pressure from the inside. You had Rayshon Benny with the sack. You had a couple from the outside with Josiah Stewart. They might have the best offensive line in the country, Texas, but we saw that last year with Washington, and those same guys, Mason Graham, Josiah Stewart, Kenneth Grant, they managed to really penetrate and get through. And this is a different deal that Texas hasn't seen defensively. I think that it's incumbent upon Michigan to hold them around 20. And I think that they are capable of doing that. Really muck this game up, right? People are sitting there looking at what the potential of this game is, and they sit there and say, this is Iowa, right? Michigan's Iowa. Well, Iowa can win some of those big games by mucking things up, and I think that might be incumbent upon Michigan. Then you look offensively, and things maybe weren't quite as dire as they seemed at the time. I think Sharon was right when he said it was 10 guys did the right thing and 1 guy didn't, and that tended to muck things up. And you can kind of see that when you go back and look. The offensive line wasn't as bad as I felt in the moment, but it still was a work in progress. As Sharon said, you usually see their biggest jump week 1 to week 2. That's something that Jim Harbaugh has long said as well. And I think that you look at, Colston Loveland, as much as people might say, well, they're just going to try to take him away. Well, that's being a 6'6" guy with the prowess of him, and the fact that Michigan can move him all over the field. It's kind of like, well, that's easier said than done. You can sit there and say, I mean, anytime that there's a star player on a team, you sit there and say, well, just take him away, right? Teams said that about Marvin Harrison Jr. Teams said that about Blake Corum. Teams say that about any big player. You say, oh, we've got to take that guy away. I'm sure that's what Fresno State thought, and he still got 8 catches and a touchdown. So I think that if Michigan can still just force Texas to play its game, it being a home game is huge. And I think that you kind of want Texas to go in feeling like we just waxed this other team, and Michigan just didn't really do that much against Fresno State. You want that to be the mentality. You want the chip on your shoulder if you're Michigan. And I think that they're probably in a little bit better spot. Now, that's not me predicting a win. I think that they absolutely could find themselves in dire straits at any point. This is a tough team to play against, but you just hope it's competitive. And you know what? If they do lose, if it's close, you look at Alabama. Alabama lost by 2 scores to Texas, I believe, last year, if I am not mistaken. Let's take a look real quick. They lost by 2 scores, 34-24. Ended up going into the playoff, and everyone was like, watch out for Alabama. Alabama also, you have to keep in mind, they looked great in week 1. They lost to Texas in week 2 at home. They went to South Florida, USF, and won 17-3, and was kind of uninspiring for a little while. Just close, they blew out Mississippi State, but then they had close ones against Texas A&M, Arkansas, Tennessee, LSU. I mean, those last 2 were a little bit better than not, and then they started rolling against Kentucky, Chattanooga, Auburn. Close one to Auburn, close one against Georgia. So it's just a matter of winning. It's not about style points. And Michigan is the last team that's going to care about style points. Remember that. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Tomorrow we're going to have Josh from PFF. He's going to come on and we're going to discuss how Michigan's looking from a PFF standard. He is, let me just give you his title here, Josh Liskiewicz. PFF Senior Data Collection Analyst, Michigan alum. I've talked to him before on the DM, so excited to welcome him to the show for the first time. So we'll have him on. Anyway, for today, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Peace.